I'm author Sarah A. Chrisman.
And I'm Gabriel Chrisman.
And today we're going to be discussing the works of Edgar Allan Poe. So I don't know how famous Edgar Allan Poe is in the rest of the world. In America, he's kind of a big deal. And if you're watching this from anywhere other than America and you have you have background on other countries, let us know if Poe is well known or not, wherever you're from, because I'd be curious to learn. He's a pretty big deal here in America because he fills a gap. We have Hawthorne, the Scarlet Letter, all of his stuff. I think Washington Irving was a little before Hawthorne. And then we have Twain. And between those two, there's a real big gap. We don't have a Byron. We don't have the Bronte sisters. We don't have any of that going on. But we have Poe, who's rather darker than the Bronte sisters.
And weirder. Deeply weirder.
Weirder.
Yes.
Weirder. I don't know if he's weirder than Byron, but...
No, I wouldn't give him that. But he's equally weird.
He was mad, bad, and dangerous to know.
Exactly.
He definitely was mad, bad, and dangerous to know.
But in a less fun way.
In a much less fun way.
Yes. A much more morbid way.
Yeah, at least Byron didn't marry his 13-year-old cousin.
Yeah, that was a little creepy.
That was creepy.
Mm-hmm.
But Poe lived from 1809 to 1849. Those are his dates. Well, that's the gap we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
No one can quite decide exactly how he died. There's a lot of theories. The most common theory is that he drank himself to death. He was a poet artist.
He seemed the type.
And he seemed the type. That's the most common theory. I've also heard the theory, so you have to understand something that was going on in America in the early 1800s. There was this thing that would go on where on election day, gangs paid to drum up votes for particular parties, would see a likely guy on the street, they'd kidnap him, drug him, shove him into a polling booth, say, vote for this party. And then when he came out again, they would change his clothes, drug him again, put him to another polling booth, and just take him from polling booth to polling booth.
This is basically as a way to add to the number of people they were able to get to vote for them just for beer.
Pretty much.
If that wasn't enough, then they would do this.
Right,
yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a theory that Poe was a victim of this sort of thing because of when he died. Also, and this I find the most intriguing theory, in 1996, so fairly recently, well, within my lifetime at least, a cardiologist got a hold of the autopsy report from Poe's death. And this cardiologist theorized that Poe had actually died of rabies, which is an oddly appropriate way for him to have died.
Yes.
So, it would be terribly wicked to say I want to believe he died of rabies, because that would be horrible of me. But
it seems slightly more interesting than the other two.
Yeah, I don't know. In any case, he died at the age of 40, which is very sad. He wrote some very interesting material in the meantime.
Yes, he tended to write short pieces, whether they were short stories or short poems.
Right.
He was not given to, extended pieces of any sort.
Right. Now, one unifying theme for all of Poe's work, it is all very dark. Very, very dark.
Extremely morbid.
Yeah, very morbid. Lots of images of death and decay and the end of families, sort of thing. Very dark stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, which is why he's popular around Halloween.
Yeah.
He gets very popular around October.
Yeah, and he was highly influential on future writers. Now, he did have a few things that were a little less dark and that did pioneer a bunch of ideas, including some detective stories.
Right. There was murders, the murders in the Rue Morgue, which is weird. That one's weird.
It's weird, but it had ideas that inspired other people to continue writing detective fiction.
A homicidal orangutan?
Yeah, okay, it was a little weird. But
A homicidal orangutan climbing in people's windows and slicing their heads off with a straight razor is a little weird.
okay, it's a lot weird, but it still inspired a lot of other people.
What qualifies in your book as a lot weird? If a homicidal orangutan crawling in windows and slicing people's heads off with a straight razor is a little weird, what's a lot weird in your book?
Well, I could steer you towards some of the stranger surrealist literature.
I don't know, Lovecraft isn't quite as weird as Poe.
Lovecraft had a little, well, yeah, he was inspired by Poe for sure.
He was inspired by Poe for sure.
But he was a little more logical and rational than Poe.
Right. And speaking of inspired by Poe, but far more logical and rational, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was a big one who was inspired by Poe.
And that's what I was talking about with the murders in the Rue Morgue being inspiring to other people, even if it was weird.
Well, I have to admit, Sherlock Holmes was ripping off one of Poe's characters big time.
Yes.
But Poe's version is even more weird. And you're talking, if I have to say Poe's character was more weird than Sherlock Holmes, that tells you just how weird Poe's stuff is.
Yes.
Because Holmes is pretty weird.
Yes, Holmes is very strange.
But Poe's characters are more weird.
Yes.
Now, I liked the Purloined Letter a lot. That's his mystery that I really like.
Yeah.
It's a very good thought experiment. If you haven't read the Purloined Letter, it's a really good one.
Right.
I have to admit, personally though, my favorite of all of his works is his poem, The Raven.
Mm-hmm.
Once Upon a Midnight
It's a
Dream.
classic.
Everyone loves The Raven.
Yes.
Everyone loves The Raven.
Mm-hmm.
It's very accessible. I mean, in terms of epic poetry, The Raven is about as accessible as it gets.
I wouldn't class it as epic poetry.
Well, it's not as long as Horatius at the Bridge.
Exactly.
But it's longer than a sonnet.
Yeah.
Let me put it this way. It's about as long as the attention span of most high schoolers can deal with these days.
Yes. Perhaps a little longer.
Give them some credit. But The Raven is great for reading on a dark, stormy night, and it just evokes this macabre scene. It's really good. The Gothic scene. Right. And I love that even The Simpsons did a spoof. It wasn't even a spoof, it was an homage to The Raven. And if you haven't seen The Simpsons homage to The Raven, look it up because it's hilarious. It's a James Earl Jones reading The Raven with The Simpsons as the visual. It's hilarious. But what's your favorite work by Poe?
Well, the one that I read first, and that I remember actually reading, when I was a pretty young kid, was The Pit and the Pendulum.
My teacher read that to us when I was in first grade.
Yeah, exactly.
And, I mean, reading it again as an adult, I was really shocked to think back and realize that a first grade teacher read this to us.
I know.
It is grisly. It is super grisly. I mean, you've got this guy with...
It's the Inquisition, it's, there's all sorts of dark stuff going on.
Yeah.
But that is the earliest one that I, remember.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
And that was a thing in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why were they reading this to small children in the 80s? I don't remember. Why was it a thing?
I'm sure it was improving. That's the idea.
The Spanish Inquisition.
Yes,
it certainly taught us vocabulary.
Yes. Poe is
give it
excellent
that.
for vocabulary.
Yeah, he's very good for vocabulary.
He loves words, clearly.
I remember another occasion when the power went out at school and we had no electricity, and our teacher pulled out a copy of Poe and read us, what did she read us that time? I think it was The Cask of Amontillado that time, which was fun. The Cask of Amontillado is about this guy getting buried alive in the caverns during Carnival. It's in Italy. Is it in Rome or is it in a different city? Venice. Yeah. And that's a great one for when the lights are out and it's a stormy day.
Well, that's pretty much all of Poe is that way.
All of Poe is great for when the lights are out and it's a stormy day. But the one I remember being assigned reading again and again and again in school was The Fall of the House of Usher, we saw that one done as a stage production when I was in middle school. We had a field trip to go see it on stage, and then we read it again, and then we read it again in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And in high school, we read it aloud as a group project. Why was The Fall of the House of Usher such an oft-assigned one, do you suppose?
I mean, a bunch of reasons. It got that whole Gothic concept of multi-generational degeneration.
If you want the most Gothic of all of Poe's Gothic stuff, and all of his stuff is super Gothic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you were to embody the works of Poe in, a character who was just going to be the central casting goth, they would have to be all in black with the eye makeup down to their cheeks. and Fall of the House of Usher is that taken
right
to 11.
Yeah, but it also is the real, for me, that sort of real thing that makes it, that takes it over the top there is that multi-generational aspect. Because, if you take any of these other ones, sure, there's an example of horror, the Pit and the Pendulum is individualized. But then this idea of this sort of, decay and degeneration and this sort of like darkness descending over multiple generations of a family.
But by the time the story starts, you're only left with one generation. Everyone else is dead.
Of course,
by that point.
But it's still telling you the story.
That's true.
And it's not the fall of this particular group of ushers. It's the fall of the entire line,
True.
Which is a Gothic concept.
Very true. Very true. Yeah,
Yes.
the fall of the House of Usher. By the time the story starts, the only one left in the family is a pair of twins, and they're both dying.
Right.
And the story is told by one of their friends who comes to visit at a particularly macabre time.
Of course. What other time would there be?
Yeah. Were there any of Poe's works you didn't like? Because for me, personally, I apologize to anyone who really loves this one. I did not like the Gold Bug. I thought that one was weird. That one's all about a letter that's in code.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's all this cryptography, which I understand there are people out there who love cryptography and love...
I kind of liked that one.
Of course you would.
Yes.
Of course you would. You love math.
Yeah. But I remember the Mask of the Red Death.
You didn't like that one? I loved the Mask of the Red Death.
I didn't like it as much as the Fall of the House of Usher.
Mask of the Red Death really sent chills down my spine.
I don't know. Maybe it was just...
So I'll tell you what I liked about it, then you
Okay.
tell me what you didn't like about it.
Mm-hmm.
So the Mask of the Red Death, there is this situation where a plague has taken over a city. And so a member of the nobility has decided he's just going to seal himself up with 1,000 friends. 1,000 of the merriest, happiest people in the community. And he seals them all up in this sort of castle situation. I think it's the abbey of the castle. And they are hiding from the plague, but then the plague sneaks in and gets them in the end. And I liked the message of not being able to escape fate, because that is such a classic trope. I mean, all mythology has the trope of people having something predicted and they try to escape it, and in the course of trying to escape it, it comes to get them anyways. And they've actually, in trying to cheat fate, they've brought it on themselves. And the Mask of the Red Death is all about that.
Yes, of course, I had a teacher who took the very leftist spin on it and saw it as a class warfare thing. That these very, sort of like rich people had decided to separate themselves off from society and not share the fate of everyone else. But of course, the lower classes rise up and they make sure that they share the same fate. So
you're telling me that your teacher turned Poe into the Communist Manifesto?
He tried very hard, yes.
Oh, Landy. Oh, Landy. No wonder you didn't like it.
Yes.
That is a bad teacher who ruined a good story for you. And that's all I got to say about that.
Yes.
But anyhow, If any of you haven't read Poe, I highly recommend it because he was so influential in our country, and he was so influential. Actually, he was influential in a few other countries because Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was very British. And some of his stories, like Murders in the Rue Morgue, takes place in France. A lot of his stories take place in Italy. The Pit and the Pendulum is Spain. So they take place all over the world. And they're pretty fun. They're especially fun to visit in October when the midnights are dreary and everyone's a bit weak and weary. So we hope you'll check it out. And we hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching today. Go ahead and give it a nice thumbs up. And please remember to tell your friends about my books. Happy reading!